Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Before I do anything else, I want to thank Roski School of Design for inviting me, and especially Callie and April for inviting me. And I want to say that if I hadn't seen April's work at the Walker Art Center, I would not be standing here. I would probably be doing something else somewhere else, probably still selling shampoo. So thank you, April. She is one of the reasons I'm a designer and found design interesting. And when I saw her work, I was like, you can do that? To turn on my stopwatch. And I'd like to thank Callie, who is an extraordinary and wonderful force in design education and a giant force in our community. Thank you, both of you, so much. And thank you for coming here and hanging out with me and doing nothing. Although when I say doing nothing, you're actually doing a lot, but I'll just show you some stuff and you can just look at it. I want to say up front too that none of what I chat with you about today is, what did I write? New or unique. This talk is in flux, it will change, and I'm not an expert, so. But I will invite you to go slowly and to do what Yeats named dropping slow and be perceptually aware, observing what is right in front of you, which is very difficult, but also very gratifying. The process of quiet observation helps us notice things. It's especially urgent in these times of relentless distractions and pressures. And I am going to talk a little bit about my own process and how slow study works into my own work and my life. I have a few examples, and then I'll show some work at the end. And I'll try to wrap this up in 45 minutes. So if you need to run, please do. So I'm going to first talk about what I mean by doing nothing, and it's really not about doing nothing. It is really about intense, slow study, and it's quiet. It's sometimes about solitude, although some people work really well in cafes where there's a lot of buzz around them. I think that working slowly is a counterintuitive catalyst for creativity. Creativity requires idle time and time away for outward observation perception. I think that it also creates new paths in your brain, although I don't know that for sure. I'm just making that up. So slow study requires patience, sitting still, taking interludes. I'm going to advocate for daydreaming. It's looking at the unremarkable and finding something in that speaks to you. It's observing with attention, and I'm going to get into that a little bit more when I talk to you about the California condors. It's really about this kind of alert, intense observing. And those of you who are working with April and me later, we're going to talk a little bit more about that together. I'm going to talk just briefly about indirect sensing because I'm going to share with you a ghost project and a little bit about remote observation. And I really want to applaud citizen scientists and their contributions. It's incredibly important to the world. They make significant contributions. There's other ways, I don't know. I live in Los Angeles, like all of you. I'm not from here, but I live in this dirty, smelly, loud place, super scruffy. As you know, the rivers are all concreted in. I love it most of the time. I'm from Minnesota. I grew up there, and every summer my parents put all of us kids into canoes along with our dog, and we went to the Boundary Waters. I actually didn't know about motels and hotels and actually restaurants until I was a teen, because I thought everybody just went camping and canoeing. My dad instituted this thing called non-days when we were out in the middle of a lake for a couple weeks, and we had nothing to do but live in the moment. And I feel like that was probably the beginning of me thinking about this, although I didn't really think about it at the time, because who would? I've worked hard to lose my Minnesota accent, and I have to say that the experience of growing up there was really influential on me becoming the best I can as a citizen scientist of nature. My dad this is just a quick thing about remote sensing. So my dad was one of the early developers of remote sensing and visual image interpretation. So behind these three things in the front are some maps that he or his team drew of vegetation and lakes and features in Minnesota. And then the front ones are some computer-generated, early computer-generated images. And the middle one, I don't know if you can see, but it has some pretty nice colored pencil on it. I think my dad did that. I think I recognize his scribbling. I enrolled at the University of Minnesota in electrical engineering and was quickly asked to leave. It wasn't a good fit, obviously, and it also was a time when there weren't a lot of women in the program, and I didn't know how to deal with that, and I also was not academically prepared. But in the meantime, I wandered around and majored in a bunch of things before I found what I was going to do. One of the jobs that I kind of stumbled into, and in retrospect I realized that the professor who hired me just wanted to make sure that I was eating and brought in donuts all the time. But he hired me to draw these little fish that he was studying called darters, and he had jars and jars and jars of darters in formaldehyde, and then I would pull them out and look at them under a stereoscope and draw them, find the most ideal darter. This darter on the right is not one of my drawings. I found this on the interweb. I don't know where my drawings are anymore. I also drew glacial maps. I did do the fish on the left. So. But it really was, it was really an influential thing for me. It was like one of those moments when I realized I could do something like this. I could find a way to bring together my enjoyment and experiences in nature, and I also love fish and drawing. And I think, for the students, I really want the students in here, I want you to really honor your own experiences and everything that has brought you to this place, because that's what will make your work really extraordinary and special. Those things that you bring that are only about you. So I'm going to talk just a little bit, maybe a little bit too much, and if you want to know more about condors, I will tell you more, but I'll try to get through this quickly. So for about 3 years, I was a volunteer for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the Santa Barbara Zoo, and I worked on the California Condor Recovery Program. In 1987, here's a little history moment, the last wild condor was captured. So they were going extinct. There were only 22 left in the wild. This was super controversial, and the Audubon Society and nature organizations were fighting over whether you just were going to let the condors go extinct or save them, and could you save them? They discovered the reason they were going extinct, that the condors were eating expended, I don't know if that's the word, ammunition that were left in carcasses. Because condors, one reason I love studying them as a vegetarian is they don't kill anything, they just clean up. So every other week during nesting season, which is about 10 months, I would drive up into the Sespe wilderness and pass the oil fields that butt up against the condor preserve. And then I would hike out into the mountains carrying a scope and a notebook and pens and watches and stuff like that. And I would sit about a mile away from a condor nest. So a biologist would have to take me out and show me where the nest was, or I would just be lost. And then I would sit there for 4 hours with my eyeball on the scope. And the little circle to the right is what I would see. It's really hard to tell, but I'll blow it up on the next thing. So if you can kind of see, there's a condor chick there. It's about the size of a lentil when I'm looking through. So sitting there for 4 hours, sometimes nothing would happen. So I would be disappointed. I'd walk back with my papers and go, I saw nothing. And the biologists were like, that's okay. I mean, that's still useful information. And I think that that's something that I take with me all the time. Like sometimes, I'm going to talk a little bit more about failure later, like, yes, failure. But this idea of like nothing happening, as designers and makers of things, we're always supposed to be producing something, and we're always supposed to be making something. It's supposed to be good and all that. This kind of taught me that there is kind of no good or bad. Everything takes time. Most important thing at the top, poison oak. Condors are, I just can't get over how cool they are. The parents are really attentive. Both of them take care of the chick. Sometimes there's even 2 males that will take care of a chick, or 2 females. But a couple stays together for 2 years and takes care of the chick until they fledge, which sometimes takes, I don't know, 8 to 10 months. And then they stay with them and help them become part of the flock. They socialize them. They're really about their community. The chick on the left is a chick in one of the, probably one of the zoos, and it's being fed by a condor puppet. Oh. I know, it's pretty cool. Oh yeah, condors, they're so cute. So these are from one of the Cornell ornithology webcams, which are just amazing. I'm sure you've all looked at them, but they're really extraordinary. One of my favorite things, besides seeing the chicks, was driving around with the biologists, because they would take us to different locations, and sometimes we would, sometimes we would haul a bunch of equipment down the mountain to make a fire break, or clip down poison oak and take care of the trails. And what I really loved about being in the back seat, I'm at an art school and I know how to talk about art. But listening to the biologists was so interesting, exciting. We were just like 2 worlds that had no intersection. but I loved hearing their lingo, their vernacular, their language, the things that they were interested in, the things that were just everyday and mundane to them were just like utterly fascinating to me. I sometimes would be at the station and discover things that are still mysterious to me. So this was a whiteboard, and I believe these are what were in the freezer for, so they capture all the condors every year and give them blood work and check to see that they have lead poisoning, if they need help with anything. So anyway, they lure them in with dead things. I don't know what a pinky is, but I love thinking about it so much. And one leg. You see all kinds of things. So these are some of the things that I would haul down the mountain. Not just me. I'm making it sound like I'm like doing all this stuff myself. I'm not. I'm such a tiny, 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 tiny infinitesimal part of this project, and I feel like sometimes it's like they're just like putting up with me because they're, you know, they need the PR with the public. But they assure me that all the contributions that citizen scientists make are really valuable. Bear scat on the top right. One of the biologists told me that when I was hiking out by myself to sing just to make sure the bears know you're coming. And I realized I don't know a whole song. This is one of the signs in the oil fields to just keep people aware of that condors will pick up micro trash and plastic and bring it back and feed it to the chicks. So this is you can see there's a little bottle cap in the crop. The people in the oil fields are really great. They are very alert and respectful of this. So when I was doing some of this work, I realized that for the biologists, everything that they're working on is a really slow-moving account. So it might take generations for something to be revealed, for the story to come to happen. Like, they don't even actually know how old a condor lives to be, because we haven't had one live a full lifespan, because the ones that were rescued in 87, some of them are still living and they're in their 60s, but we don't know how far they're going to go beyond that. It's a leap of faith. Like, I don't know that I have the same kind of thing in my own profession, but I think it's really interesting to think about other professions where you just have to trust that what you're doing is going to generate something or not. I mean, who knows? If you're really interested and you want to know more, the LA Zoo has a recovery center, and you can set up time to go have a tour. And you can see they have a screen where they are watching a nest. The two biologists I met there have been working there for 30 years every single day, because everything still needs to eat. I do. I'm an amateur, and I really want to advocate for amateurism. I'm an outsider. I think there's a real beauty in not understanding everything, not having everything explained. Now that we have our phones, I can look up anything I want at any time. But I think it's good to not always know things. I don't mean be dumb, but you know what I mean. And I think that all of you have a specific knowledge that you bring to your own work. So I really want you to honor that and have an appreciation for your specific knowledge, your vernacular, your acronyms, all the things that go along with that. So Henry Thoreau wanted to live deep. I love that expression. He also had his mom doing his laundry, so that did help with his deep living. I often wonder if we need to be alone to observe, but I don't know. Some people don't. And maybe leaving things undone is a good thing. I think that in this time where everything is being rushed and you have to like post all the time and like keep up with this and that and learn new software every minute, maybe sometimes you just leave it not done. Okay. So I really think it's really hard to pay attention to what's in front of you and to really notice what you're seeing. I really love this book, The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa, and I'm not giving anything away because you find out right away, but in the novel, this community, things are taken away from them and they can't remember what they were. Like, they might be holding a plum, but the idea of fruit is gone. So they're like, what is this round thing? And I love this description, and there's so many descriptions in this book of nature that are just like exquisite. But this one about describing this little brown creature is just like, that is the thing that I aspire to just like really say what I can see in front of me. So when we're in school or sitting in one place, the world is still in constant motion. So the birds, rain, wind, things, human things like the post office, it's all still moving. And I think I really want to invite you to just stop and pay attention to the mundane and the everyday. Like, it's there. It's really beautiful. And I don't think I made this up. I think I read it somewhere, but I can't remember who said this about throwing a burr into the stream of your memories, and like something that you can throw in. Do you guys know what burrs are? There's those stickers that you get in the wood and they stick on you. So throw a burr into your stream of memory to remember something, to make it luminous, and to be able to come back to it. So there's other ways of slowing time, slow-mo. So slowing things down can help reveal some things that you might not see when it's going the natural speed. I mean, that's where the camera is so fantastic, that you can actually like examine things moment by moment. And we live in our bodies, so you know, when I talk about a slow-moving account, that's like our lives too. Like we are moving. We're going into the future. This is from the Peregrine, really fabulous book about a man who walks I'm not sure if they're moors or the forest or whatever, in England, and just watches peregrines, and nothing happens. Another way to talk about slowing time or the spaces between things is in music. And those of you who read music, you can see that there's no time signature, and so it's up to the performer to interpret what this piece is. And I think that those spaces and gaps and pauses between the sounds are as important and maybe even more important than the actual sounds. And the type designers in this room know that the space around the typography or the word is actually sometimes more powerful than what is actually the object. So it might be silence, or I don't have an example of this, but I've been taking Balinese flute from Nyoman Wenton at CalArts, and he uses gamelan and suling, which is the bamboo flute. I've played the traverse flute my whole life, so this was like, I was like, I got this. I can play this. I was just like, I didn't even know how to hold it. I didn't know how to blow into it or make a sound. One thing I really loved about this experience was learning about that the notation is so different from what I was used to. The numbers on this refer to the tones, and those dashes are what I would have thought were the rests or the pauses, but that's actually where you have the continuous sound. And those of you who have been around the gamelan at CalArts know it's continuous, and there's always there's rhythm, there's different tones happening, things are bending, and the idea of a pause is filled with sound, which is really another, like, it's always nice to think, like, what is the opposite of what you're saying or what you're seeing? This is a piece by, these are 4 stills from a film by James Benning, and I don't know if you've been to other James Benning films, but I highly recommend it. This is Stemple Pass, and it's 4 half-hour shots taken from the same position at 4 times of the year. And so it's a 2-hour film with just a still image. And when I went to see this, it was like it was an experience. And I started out being, I can do this. James Benning was sitting a couple of seats down from me, so it's like, please don't let me fall asleep. But I was super fidgety at first, and I had to keep like pinching myself and like just pay attention. And slowly, as it progressed, I got it's not that I got used to it, but I became just kind of mesmerized by it and began to notice very subtle things. And at that point, then my eyes were drying out because my eyes were just open. And when it would switch to another season, it was like, oh, okay. I'm going to miss that last season. But it was really an extraordinary moment. Remote observation. So I guess live webcams in nests really are one way of thinking about this, but also this is a really beautiful book by Caterina Perini about she set up trail cams to capture images of mountain lions. And it's kind of one of the most direct nature documentaries, but it can be intrusive to their subjects. Okay, so indirect sensing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a ghost project that I've worked on in collaboration with this organization called Design Inquiry. And Design Inquiry is like kind of this, I don't know how to describe it. Some of you have been there. To take part in a design inquiry, you get on a ferry and take a boat out to this island off the coast of Maine, and then you stay in a haunted house. So after a few nights of staying in what was called the ghost room and like laying awake a little bit too much, the group of us decided that we would invite the ghosts to collaborate with us. We didn't want them to prove that they were there, but we wanted them to do something with us if they wanted to. So this is the ghost room, and we set up tools for them to draw, not conventional tools, but thinking about what a ghost can do, like taking an assessment. They can emit light or smells, they can make sounds, they can create wind. So we made some things that you maybe could blow around. We used tools that they might have been used to, like things from the kitchen. This is a stationery on the right, so you could write a letter to the ghost, and the drawing is the ghost room turned inside out, and some tools. Nothing happened. So we set up again at the Gamble House in Pasadena, and it was an event, so there was people coming through, so people could come and collaborate with the ghosts. And I think that the Gamble ghost maybe had more access to art training, so they were a little bit more open to doing some things. They also, I understand, enjoy traveling up electrical cords through currents. So we set up an eraser with a pencil on it, and the participants could hold the eraser, and the ghosts would guide them around. Pretty much a failure. But anyway, I think that I really want, especially for the students, like advocate for you to try things that might not work out. And as someone who just made a whole batch of marmalade that turned a little bit too dark, but more information, as they say. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my own work, and this is going to be about 12 minutes. So just a kind of Wayback Machine, this is where I started. After I saw April's work at the museum, I was like, you can do that? Wow, it's so crazy that it wasn't really about just fitting type. It really could be something expressive. It could it could tell me what it wanted to do. Like I could look at a piece and go, what do you want to be? And it would tell me stories, I would tell it stories. It became this really interesting way of thinking about making work. So among my waitressing jobs and orderly jobs and different things, I would bicycle around to different magazines in Minneapolis and do work. I really loved magazines. So Art Paper was one of them. When I left grad school, I went to work for the experimental and hugely influential design journal Emigre and Type Foundry. Emigre was it's not being published anymore, but it was this big magazine of design work that wasn't in the canon, or yet maybe. really interesting interviews, and it was a big reason that I went to grad school. Anyway, I was invited up by Rudy Vanderlands to design and write one issue, and it's broadcast. And then on the right is a poster that I designed with Rudy Vanderlands for one of my favorite designers, Ed Fella. And we wanted to do what Ed couldn't do with his photocopy machine, which was like he had designed this typeface that were characters, so you could hold down a key and it would just repeat forever. You could bold an image, italicize it. So it's kind of what Ed couldn't do, or he could do, but it would take him a while. Anyway, these are a few. This is what the 90s look like. I want to talk about making a mess too. Like, I know when I'm a student and designers and artists would come and lecture, like they would show this work and it'd be like, oh my word, it's so beautiful, it's perfect. And it's like, it looks so easy, how'd they do that? I want to just tell you, it's not like that. Maybe for some people, and sometimes I can do something like right off the bat, but usually it's a mess and there's a lot of walking around going, I can't do this, I suck, I just got to start over, this is so bad. There is no good or bad, and making a mess is what it's all about. So I like to cut things up and create little scenarios in the landscape and just try different things to trick myself or to tell myself stories. On the left is a silkscreen setup that I had in my garage. When I was in school, I worked with, there was a painter, Mary Abbott, who her class was that she took us to the river every single day. And sometimes it was really cold and snowy, and we would draw the Mississippi River. And at the time it was like, oh, geez, this is weird, and I'm not learning how to do anything. I don't know what she's thinking. But I never missed a class because I knew there was something about it that was kind of special, and like you were in this cool club if you're doing the river thing. And that was part of it too. So that's one thing that has stuck with me about my education for forever. And it's one of the things that I like to create in my classrooms too. I like to make things, just to listen to what is around you and to really look. And to maybe do something that might seem a little bit weird or dumb or pointless. So obviously these are just drawings I did of condors, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with them. These are some, I thought that maybe I wanted to make a dress, I wanted to make fabric. So these are some tests for that. I'm going to show you some work coming up that I'm not paid for. So I just wanted to say it's kind of not fair to do that. I do need to make money to pay for food and stuff like that. So for a while I was a book designer, and this is a book I did with Katie Hamburger. And what we wanted to do, in the way that this slow observation, slow study works, is that we wanted to look at the details of a book that are usually overlooked and give those emphasis. So in some ways we inverted what a book was supposed to be, or the way that you are supposed to approach a book and interact with it. So the contents were in the middle, things were like turned over. This book was also in Euskera, which is the Basque language, and German and Korean. It was a really fun book to work on, especially with Katie. And I really think collaborating is I'll talk a little bit more about it, but it's super special. This is a project I just finished. I was asked to do a piece for Women's Day for a show that's in 2 design cities, Tijuana and San Diego. And what I did was for 2 months, because I don't have a lot of extra time, in the morning I would just do a drawing from the LA Times of a woman how women are shown in the LA Times. And then I captured the captions too. So I don't really know where this is going yet, but it was really kind of illuminating to see how women are shown, and what does LA or Southern California look like? So I folded it into, it's 15 feet long, but I folded it into panels that were the same size as the LA Times print edition front page. Do you guys know what a print edition? I don't even know. And then I did a lot of work for an art organization called Machine Project. Usually the prompts were communicated to me, and they weren't given to me fully, so I usually misinterpreted them. And I really came to love that. And a lot of the people in this room have also done work for Machine Project. We had a 15-year run of making posters, usually after the event. This is, again, about thinking about language and how we unspool language. And it's a poster to talk about this singer, Cliff Hangst. And he's in San Francisco walking up a hill singing, "I left my heart in San Francisco." And I just wanted to show how do we talk about language through time and space? This is a poster series I did about to kind of commemorate and think about a really mundane thing. So sometimes in the winter in Minnesota, the lake would freeze before the snow would come. So this is about laying on the ice in the dark and listening to the ice. It makes big cracks and weird sounds, and just listening to that, you'd hear it just echo across the lake. So I was just trying to say what that felt like. I do a lot of collaboration and really love the process. I work a lot with Denise Gonzalez-Crisp. We write together, we sew, we make films, we draw. She cooks, I don't cook. And this is a project with Jeff Kaplan, who's my probably longest term collaborator, and Alan Horey, who was one of my idols. And what we would do is we would pass this file around to each other. I did a lot of the illustrations, and then they would take them apart, and then they would send me something and I would take it apart and then put it back together. Or as Jeff says when he's handing me a file, mess it up. This is a project I did with Jeff for a couple of years. We worked on a book, so just a couple spreads from that. I want to thank Amy Gersler and John Wu for getting me back into drawing. This is a cover for one of Amy's books. Another friend. I've been really lucky to work with a lot of writers and artists, and those things just happen. It's not like again, when lecturers would come and talk to my class, I was like, how do you know all these cool people? And it's like, well, they are your friends, they're your colleagues. So these people in this room are people you're gonna know forever. And that's a really nice thing. Some of them you never want to see again, but. And then I think this is one of the last things I'm going to talk about. So I had a resew machine. It's the dark side. It was constantly breaking, and I'd have to call Manny, the one repair guy in Los Angeles, and he would come over with his kids, and I'd play cards while he would fix my resew. Whenever I was doing anything, I'd have to reach into it and like turn something, and it was like, I loved it, but I gave it to someone who is now using it. But in the meantime, I made a number of small booklets, with a group of other designers. We wanted to stay in touch with each other, so this is something that you can create for yourself when you leave school. We wanted to stay in touch, so we made a pact that we would make 10 booklets over 5 years, and that we would meet up twice a year, have dinner, and then we'd make our booklets, and then we'd have a release party. Simple as that. One of them was Henry Lucas. And I got to one of the dinners, and we were talking about what we were going to do, and it was like, I don't have an idea. And the butter was sitting in front of me, so I said, I'll do butter. And then later I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? But I found, anything can be interesting. So butter led back to my goat milking days. It led to me finding texts about dog cheese. It exists. I forget what else, but it ended up with yodeling. So it all comes back together. I tried to learn how to yodel, but I failed. This is a little booklet about shoveling a path across the lake. I'm really interested in just manual labor that is useful, but like to an extreme. So like, why would you shovel across a lake? This is a little booklet about every day is the same, but that's okay. And this is about my blind cat navigating my house. And then, just do stuff every day. I'm going to say that, and then I'm going to tell you right away. Sometimes there's many days between my every day. But sometimes, sit with your coffee, you can draw on your phone, or one thing I like to do is just make something and then like keep adding to it, and then you can throw it away or do what you want with it. The iPad has been like a really nice tool because it's just there and it's kind of no pressure, and it actually makes really beautiful marks. And you've made it to the end. This is a nature film. I'm hoping to make some more nature films. Nothing happens in this film. Thanks, everyone.